Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday Lives, our weekly casual chat with content creators from different backgrounds, everything live streaming. Welcome, everyone, and this show, just so you know, is powered by Restream. This Restream Studio is how we do this, and if you are interested in running your own live show on multiple platforms at the same time, such as LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and many others, you can check it out right here at restream.io/studio. My guest today is Madeline Mann. She is the creator of Self-Made Millennial, and she's also a career coach and talent and learning management professional. So she does HR and tons of different tips for career professionals, for those people who are looking for jobs and for change in their careers. Madeline is also known on LinkedIn by #tangerine tips, and she is going to be here with us sharing her tangerine energy. Hi, Madeline, and welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. So great to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. It's so glad to have you. I am super excited about this show today. We're going to talk about so many different cool things. We're going to talk about basically two major blocks that we will cover. One is going to be talking about live video and content creating for job seekers, for people who are searching for advancement in their career. We'll also cover how the things changed now with pandemic and how that affects people who are looking to grow and advance professionally. And we will also talk a little bit about how HR professionals and people who are career coaches like yourself and talent management professionals, how can they leverage live video and how can that be a helpful tool for them to achieve their goals. So this is let's go ahead and just start with a quick intro that is done by you. I know I did my little spiel, but I'll let you introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anya. Yeah, so amazing intro. Creator of Self-Made Millennial. I really took my experience in human resources, being the one who was interviewing candidates, who was the one who was reading every scorecard and understanding who was getting through the funnel and who wasn't, and who was being discussed as being promoted in the back room and who wasn't. And I knew that if only more people had the context that I have, they would make much better decisions in their career. And so I started building content, and I ultimately, have built an audience of over 400,000 subscribers and built several courses such as my course Standout Resume and LinkedIn for Thought Leaders.
Awesome. Awesome. No, that's super exciting. I did watch your Self-Made Millennial channel. It's gold. It's just so much insights and helpful tips on very practical things, which is very important, right? There are a lot of people who are talking about generic and philosophical concepts of how to grow professionally. And the beautiful thing about Madeline's channel is that it is actually what you can do today without any kind of labor intense craziness that can improve your chances in growing as a professional tomorrow. So very, very clean, very easy, and very actionable, which I absolutely adore. Definitely my style. So let's just jump onto it. And by the way, for all of our viewers here, I would like to mention that we are going to take your questions. This is your opportunity to talk to career coach and to share your experience, your challenge with career. Maybe you're an HR professional, you have a question for her, like how to handle your goals and tasks better. Please let us know in comments. We will take them in the middle of the show in about 30 minutes from now, and we'll take as many as we can. But let's just first, just to jumpstart this conversation, let's answer a simple question. Why do people who are looking to boost their careers should care about live video and live streaming?
So what I found about live streaming is that, I've been on social media very actively for the past few years, and a different audience shows up to a live stream. Not just a different audience, but the engagement is different in that if you've ever built any content or put yourself out there on LinkedIn or other platforms, you'll notice that you might not have gotten that much engagement, but then you go to a networking event and people go, oh yeah, you're really active on LinkedIn. And you're like, well, I never see you on LinkedIn. You never say anything to me. But when you go live, there's a lot of people who are, affectionately called lurkers, who actually then interact. And so I think there's a magic to it in knowing that you are there and you're in this moment with someone, that you're able to connect with people who you wouldn't have connected with otherwise.
Awesome. Yeah. So we'll break down this conversation between job seekers and HR professionals. So first, we'll cover things for people who are looking for career investment, and basically, that will be the block of questions that we'll be answering today at the beginning. So. I know as a career coach, you have a lot of people who are coming to you for kind of like one-on-one private consultations and guidance and coaching. What are the most common problems that people are coming to you with, and what are they trying to solve with the help of career coach?
I would say the first one is that they feel like they have so much to offer, but no one is giving them that chance. And they usually ascribe it to something of, well, I don't have that experience that they're looking for, or I don't have this pedigree. That is often a thought of just, how do I stand out? And it seems like I'm never winning. It seems like, even though I know I can do this job, I'm not rising to the top. So that's the number one thing I see. And then what's interesting is often what people don't lead with, but then once I start to peel back the layers, the second thing is they don't actually know what they want. So there's this idea of, I'm going to brand myself very broadly. I'm going to apply to any job that sounds remotely interesting and just hope to see who will pick me up. I call this hitchhiking through your career, where you stick out your thumb and you just see what job picks you up. And there's not a lot of intention there. And the thing is, as an employer, as the person in HR who is conducting these interviews, you can tell someone who has really done their research and the hard work of finding what is their true path and understanding what it takes to get there and being very set on that path, versus someone who is exploring and potentially could use your company as what I call a career experiment, where you don't even know if you're going to stay in that job. You're just kind of like using it as a career experiment to see if you like it or not. And companies don't want to be your career experiment. They want to be the place that you really want to end up in.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, of course. And it does help when you know what you want, right? No matter where you are and what you're doing, whether it's relationship, personal life, career, professional. If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to build a product, it's just a lot easier to do things when you have some kind of like a North Star, right? That's guiding you. So that's great. And that's probably one of the main reasons why career coaches are so helpful, because you can help people to identify that and then package that properly, whether it's your resume or any other content that you're building around your personal and professional brand. So jumping back to the videos and kind of like live streaming. So I'm not sure if that's something that a lot of people believe or it's just like my idea, but I feel like some people think that the videos and live streaming as part of your career journey and your professional brand is only good for certain roles. Like if I'm a social media strategist, or I'm a TV host, or I'm a social media marketer or some kind of marketer, then I should care about live video. But for other roles, not so much. Do you agree with that? Or do you think that anyone can benefit from lives?
Yeah, so I have a course called LinkedIn for Thought Leaders. And when you look at the types of professionals who are in that course, building thought leadership, engaging with their network, getting exceptional job opportunities and speak opportunities and clients, they come from all different backgrounds. And it's really cool because it's actually, you're kind of in a blue ocean market if you're in a space that is less crowded, like such as career coaching, I would say is a bit more crowded than say, I have someone in the program who's all about Salesforce and talks a lot about Salesforce, and she's getting a lot of great traction. I have another person in the course who's all about AI, and she's doing great work on bringing in an audience and talking about things like that are pretty technical, but when people see that person is my kind of person, you don't need to attract everyone. And matter of fact, if you are attracting everyone, then you're probably being a bit too generic. And so I think really knowing that you have a tribe, you have people who are in your field who really want to talk about these things, but they don't actually, not a lot of people are stepping forward. And so I think that this is such a great way for you as a professional to say, hey, why don't I start this conversation? And that is the key. Starting a conversation, not thinking, oh, I am the all-knowing expert and I'm going to bless you all with my information. People want to start a conversation and you can be the one to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that interactive element is crucial for sure. It's a great way to kind of like showcase you and showcase your capabilities and like how would you sound in real life? Because let's face it, live streaming and live video is as close to being interacting with somebody in person as it possibly gets. There's no editing, there's no opportunity to come back and kind of polish things, right? Like that's just you as you will be at that space. So that's yeah, it's definitely very valuable for a lot of people, but hard to master. Speaking of hardships, one thing I was always curious about for people who are actively pursuing a career right now, searching for jobs, trying to maybe change things within their own organization or try find something new. What are the most common mistakes that people make when they're job searching, especially if they're trying to change the direction of their career and like start doing something new?
So one of the number one things I notice that's a massive mistake when people are career changing is they hold on tight to their previous career. Such as, let's say they are a teacher and they now want to become a graphic designer. You like what a lot of them do is like, I am an educator and I do design. It's like, no. You're not an educator anymore. Like that's obviously there's transferable skills there that we can illustrate, but you need to rebrand yourself. Just as it would be confusing if a company kind of just held on to this past, brand that completely was in a different area. It would just be so confusing. So really fully rebranding yourself, committing to this new path. And it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning is like, do not seem like scattered and unclear and like that everything is a career experiment. So really devoting yourself, changing your headline to the value you add to the world, to the step you're going to take, not the job you had last, especially if the job you had last is not in the space that you want to go forward. So really taking the time to think more forward thinking about your profile. A few practical tips could be something like, really focusing on, instead of your about section, maybe just being, your accomplishments in the academic field, which may or may not actually relate to the field of graphic design. Talk about how you became passionate about graphic design. Maybe something in the classroom inspired you, but then talk about that. Talk about some of the projects you've worked on since then, even if they're personal projects, even if you weren't paid anything to do that, that is still valuable experience. And then talk about the future. So start thinking in a future branding state versus I'm just going to report accurately on my past. I call your LinkedIn profile and your resume a sales page, not a Wikipedia page, right? Not recording everything in the past, but selling yourself. That's something that I really go deep in on my course, Standout Resume. But like that's the essence of what you need to do.
I love that. I love that sales versus Wikipedia approach. That is so clever, because a lot of people do actually fall into that trap, and myself included. Early on in my career, I was that person who was like, all right, I'm going to list all the jobs that I had, when and where, and like why, like what specifically I was doing, when actually now when I am actually hiring people and building my team, the first thing I want to know is, what did you do in the past? For sure, yes, I want to know that, but also why did you do that? And what are you going to bring to the table when I bring you on my team? Like, what are you going to do for me? And that is, that's definitely, like, you have to be good at selling those specific things, not just like describing what you've done in the past. That's great. Love it. Wikipedia versus sales. All right. So we all, let's just look at the elephant in the room. COVID-19 pandemic is still huge. We're based in Austin, Texas. So for us, we're one of those states that is really being hit hard with pandemic these days. And of course, a lot of things changed with COVID-19, and the job market is no exception. How, in your opinion, with your experience, how is it different now versus pre-pandemic?
There's been several changes. I mean, I would say, for some people, their career has been completely upended. That if there was if the core focus of your job was to be in person, your life does not look the same right now. So there's a lot of reskilling that needs to happen. I think there's also a lot of the number of applications per role have increased dramatically. Though it has been interesting, because the number of success stories that have come in for me are higher than ever, as far as my students and those who follow my advice. And I think the reason is when there's all these people doing the same thing, everyone's rushing to the job boards. Everyone's going for these same jobs. What I help people do is to stand out, is to go a route that is a bit different. And I've also helped people to create jobs during COVID that never existed before COVID, but are now in complete high demand, such as one person helping rebranding themselves. They worked in the entertainment industry, and now they help sets to be COVID sensitive and COVID compliant. So they go onto sets and make sure that everyone is safe. That job obviously never existed before. Another person who is now a webinar moderator, and he gets business coming out of his ears because we work together to rebrand him and create this new job that is in such high demand now. And so the thing that is so interesting is that you can look at COVID as something that will get you down, and now you'll just have to wait until your job comes back into practice and all that kind of stuff. Or you can start getting really savvy. You can start kind of finding where are the gaps in the market and fill those. And that has had immense results for my clients, my students, and my followers.
Yeah, definitely. It's so interesting how kind of a silver line right here, right? How coronavirus affected everybody in mostly negative way, right? A lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of people lost their sources of income, but at the same time, it sounds like it created space for some people to reimagine their current professions and also create completely new things, like you mentioned earlier. I always find it very inspiring, and especially working with Restream, one thing that I see a lot is how many people turn into live streaming and live streamers and content creators because of coronavirus, because everyone is staying home, everyone is stuck, but at the same time, they want to stay relevant. They want to continue keeping in touch with their community, with their network. Like you mentioned, if you're an educator, that's your students. If you're a marketer, that's your customers. If you're a social media strategist, that's your network. And how a lot of people were like, well, you know what? I can still do all those things. It's just going to be different right now. And I have to adjust. And those people who adjusted are very successful. And those people who are just sitting around and thinking, gosh, I just want everything to be back like pre-coronavirus as soon as possible. Well, that's a strategy too, but it's going to take a while and it might not work. It's definitely interesting thing to mention. So speaking about novelties that we're all dealing with, one thing that is definitely huge these days is live videos and live interviews. So what used to be in-person experience, when someone is trying to find a job, they're coming to the office and they experience this in-person interaction with their hiring managers and with the team. Now it's all Zoom, right? Now it's all done online and virtually. Do you think, I will just try to ask you, since you have a lot of experience with live streaming, to compare those experiences of interviewing via video and live streaming content on social media. How would you compare the two?
Yeah, I would say that there's a challenge of connecting through a screen. And I think one of the key things for both is that while a camera may add 10 pounds, it subtracts 3 cups of coffee. So however you normally appear in real life, you need to amp up your energy a little bit more. You amp it up on a live, you amp it up in a video interview. You need to just bring a little bit extra energy, because if you watch a recording back of yourself, when you go live, you have the opportunity to watch it back. You don't really get to watch back interviews. And so it's actually interesting to watch back a live and take what you're noticing about your mannerisms and put that into a job interview, because I've had so many students of mine, they see what they're like on an interview, like, wow, like I seem like I'm half asleep, but they're just being normal, right? So really thinking about that, trying to focus, I'm trying to do my best right now to look straight into the camera, stuff like that, where you just really want to connect with people directly. And there's just some of these things that are really important to keep in mind. And I have a full video that came out last week that did really well on YouTube about how to have a killer video interview. And I talk about a lot of that stuff. And that has already gotten people some really amazing results. So many people are like, wait, I have a video interview tomorrow. This is great. So there's a lot of tips in there. That is amazing how it actually goes live stream and video interviews. There's a lot of crossover.
I really love how you basically say, hey, this live videos that you can do is your opportunity to look at yourself and evaluate the quality of your lives, like how you look when in real time. And it's such a challenging thing for me personally. It's very hard for me to make myself go back and watch this live streams that I host, because it's such a nerve-wracking experience, because there's so much that you can find about yourself that is not good. Like, oh, I sound weird. I have this accent. My hair doesn't look good. All kinds of things. So what is your advice to overcome that kind of cranky feeling that I don't want to rewatch myself because this is just odd?
So it is going to feel odd. And I actually did on my YouTube channel release a lot of my bloopers, because for the first year or two, I did not go live. I was not as brave as you. And so I did a lot of editing, and I was a spaz and I didn't really know what to say. I would blank out mid-sentence. And the thing to know is that, and I believe you actually even said this like on a podcast, is that you said like, you just need to keep showing up. You know, you need to keep doing it, and it gets easier. And I think that is so important. And the thing is that people find it endearing if you are maybe not your best on screen, and people are actually rooting for you. So just like putting it out there, done is better than perfect. And I did not talk like this a few years ago. It's been a process to be able to talk on screen live. It's not simple.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not simple. And yeah, say you're brave, but it's it's one of those challenges that you overcome every day. And what is inspiring to me, and I think it's going to inspire everybody else, is that first, yes, your lives will never be perfect. No matter how experienced you are, I don't care how many times you've done that, there will be issues. Technical issues, things that happen around, your emotions, things that are happening in your life, they're all going to affect your performance, and no two interviews are going to be the same. No two live streams are going to be the same, but that's okay. And you're right. The community is always so supportive. People appreciate that vulnerability that you share when you just show up like this live, no editing, no polishing. And I think it's very inspiring and very supportive. So remember that whenever you think it's going to be awful, it's actually probably going to be 10 times better than you expect. So yeah. Let's talk about resumes, right? And how live videos or any kind of video content can supercharge your resume. These days, it's so difficult to send out. We kind of unpacked that earlier. How specifically, like what kind of specific tips can you give to people who are thinking like, okay, I really want to send out, but I don't want to do too much. I don't want it to be weird or crazy. Can I incorporate live videos or pre-recorded videos into my presentation to employer in the comprehensive and kind of like nice and a good way?
Yeah. So I've been thinking about this so much, and I guess depending on when folks watch this, I have a video coming out on YouTube this Thursday about how to create a video resume. And the bottom line, Anya, is no one does this. Like no one creates video or live video for applying to jobs. It's extremely rare. I think it's happened maybe once in my career where someone has sent in some sort of video component to their resume. I'm sure that number dramatically increases if you are in some sort of creative medium where video is common. But from a business perspective, it really is uncommon. And the magical thing that happens when people do that is it's not a guarantee that you'll get the interview, but it is increasing the chances that someone will go, wow, this person put in a lot of effort. Yeah. They seem cool. Or they share it with their person who sits next to them or their teammate. I guess not sits next to them these days, but at least metaphorically. And so I think that really any element where it shows that you are putting forward this extra effort, you're showing your personality. I don't think people should overthink it. I do think people should watch that video because I put it like a script that you can use and the exact structure and how to do it. But at the same time, I think a few of the elements are, if you have the time and if you have the focus, like adding some custom elements to it. So maybe part of the video, like at the very beginning, cutting in a part that says, hi, Restream, like I love your company and I really want to work for you. And then like maybe there's some more stuff that is more generally widely used across other videos. But there's an element of this person is speaking to that company. This person is saying why they want to work for that company. That's really compelling.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think even if you don't necessarily create content for a specific company, like create a video because you're trying to apply, just the fact that you're practicing and creating those lives and video content, sharing whatever you're passionate about or whatever you're an expert in, it kind of already creates that library of different things. Like for me, for example, I'm obviously not looking for a change in terms of job, but if I ever do, there's this whole thing of content that I created that shows my skills, my abilities, and portrays me as someone who is so the employer can look at me and say, okay, so she's capable of this and this and this. Okay, this is what we need. This is what we can correct, and that's very powerful, and that's already done, right? I don't even have to do anything extra. Speaking of passions, one of your latest posts had this really interesting quote: "Don't follow your passion; it's bad career advice." Can you explain what you mean by that? It's very interesting.
Yes. So I work with people at all different points of their careers, and I think they fall victim to they're completely unhappy in their career. And it's because they got this advice to follow your passion. Now, that advice alone is fine, but when you look at what people take that as, they often say, well, what is my passion? They look to their hobbies. They think I love hockey, I love fashion, I love, movies or whatever it is. And they go all in on that career path without focusing on what are my strengths? What are the things that I do where I absolutely rock it and I am able to excel quickly? And what are my values? And a lot of times, do I care about coming home to my family in the evening and eating dinner with them? Do I care about working on a collaborative team? Do I like working at a company that focuses on merit instead of who you know? So when you actually look at those components, and then you also look at market demand, so really choosing a job where you will have the actual number of roles is increasing and the salary is increasing, and you can feel like there's job security and you can really grow in that career. When you have those three things, I've just seen those highly correlated to career satisfaction. So that's values, strengths, and the market. And so I really think that we are damaging people by telling them, oh yeah, just follow your passion. Just, become that sportscaster. Like, I don't know that we need more sportscasters. I actually haven't looked very closely at that, but like that is usually what the first thing that people think of versus where's the market at? What are my values? What are my strengths?
That's awesome. Yeah, that is very practical and helpful. So you mentioned your course of how to become a thought leader, and that's one of the things that you encourage people to consider and work on within their social media presence and just in general. So why is this important in career contest? And is this something that only C-level executives or director level people should care about to become a thought leader, or is this a path or good advice for anybody at any level of their career?
So building thought leadership, building your personal brand is how you recession-proof your career. When you think about, a shelf full of products, like a shelf full of toothpaste, the wall of toothpaste at a United States grocery store is just like massive. And you usually reach for the brands that you're familiar with. And not because we know that they're, specifically way better than the others, but familiarity breeds fondness. And it's the same thing in the job market is, people worry about reaching out to people cold on LinkedIn or online or over email. And when you're building a personal brand, it's no longer a cold message. People are familiar with you, even if they haven't interacted with you personally. They kind of get what you're about. They've seen you around, and they feel much more comfortable giving you an interview, reaching out to you when they have a role that matches your headline. And so it gives you this incredibly massive advantage of just simply like expanding your network tenfold or 100-fold by being someone who isn't just, a random black and white resume page, but is someone who's living, breathing, contributing, interacting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so anybody, no matter where you are in your career, like this, and it's a long process, right? To become a thought leader, you can't just wake up and be like, okay, so here's the list of things. done, thought leader, check. Like it's basically, you earlier you start, sooner you get where you want to be, and then more options and more doors you can have open for you. Let's get to our questions. They're piling up, so I'm so excited. There's so many cool things that people are asking. We're going to start kind of like chronologically. One of the first questions that we got was, could you explain in short why live stream is better than pre-recorded video? Live interaction, of course. What else? Specifically in the context of job searching, career path. What is your opinion on that, Madeline?
So I think that there's different avenues, right? Like I started with pre-recorded videos because the idea of going live was a bit too much for me, and I really wanted to be able to control the message. I would say I also had editing skills and all this kind of stuff. So I felt really comfortable doing that. But I think the wonderful thing about live is, first of all, like it really just like gets you, it makes sure that you really complete the action, right? Like you show up, you're there, you're interacting. And I think it was exactly what you said, Anya, earlier of showing your authentic self. There's an element of this ability to feel like you're really connecting with someone through a live that sometimes people can feel a bit untouchable over pre-recorded video.
And I think another thing that I'm kind of borrowing from your video that I watched some time ago is that it's also a little bit of a time saver. Like one of the reasons why I started to do the live show is not only because I'm brave, but also because I just can't, write a script and then record and then take multiple takes and then add it and then add special effects and then schedule it and then publish and then it's just a lot of work. Versus live, a lot of times, as counterintuitive as it sounds, because it's real, it's just like right there. Like you think you need to be prepared and you think you need a lot more time in order to make it good and successful. But actually the community is a lot more forgiving when it's live, and it can actually be it can fast track you. You can go live a lot faster than you can create a good, perfect, polished, well edited pre-recorded video. So just something to consider for busy people. Anastasia here from LinkedIn is asking, is there any list of skills that you recommend to facilitate career change? Good question. So not specifically skills for specific profession, but what do you need to be able to do basically to have that in you to make that shift?
Yep. So 60% of your time should be focused on building experience. So it should be really understanding what are the skills that are desired in your chosen profession. And you learn that by asking professionals in that profession of what is important and not just getting random certifications and hoping that that is what is needed. So, and when I say building experience, like truly like building side projects, asking your neighbor who owns their own business if you can, pitch in and get that experience on your resume, whatever it is, spend 60% of your time doing that. Spend 30% of your time building relationships in that field. Again, just having informational interviews, asking to hear people's stories, and really making sure that you're building those relationships, because that's going to, one, fast track you as far as understanding exactly how to position yourself in the market. And two, those are often the people who will give you that job and give you that breakthrough. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It might not happen next week, but in a few weeks, in a few months, they think of like, wow, it was so pleasant talking to Anya, and like I can tell how passionate she is, and she's been keeping me updated with how her journey has been going. And whoop, we just opened a role, and I'm going to reach out to Anya. So that is huge. And then the 10% is reading books, taking courses, just making sure you're staying educated. So if you're allotting your time in that way, you're going to build the right skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. There's so many cool comments here, just such as like such an important topic, folks. Thank you so much for sharing this. I'm just going to say thank you very much for your feedback. That's great to hear that you like the topic, and it is definitely it's a pleasure to read your comments and your little grateful notes. So another one from Anastasia here: how to choose which career to go into? Great question for people who are just starting and who are just kind of like tuning into this career job market. Like, where do you get started? Like, how do you choose so you don't have to switch later, right?
Right. So you need to do two things. First is figure out what your strengths are. So really notice what you've done in the past and what what those strengths are underlying, such as, let's say you were really good at chemistry in school. That doesn't mean you need to become a chemist. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but maybe it means that you're really analytical. And so then you think, okay, I'm going to write down analytical. I'm really good at analytical work. And then you look at your values and you really take a close, harsh look at, or just a very, strict look at what do you value, what will make you happy, and be honest with yourself. And once you have those two things, then you need to talk to professionals in all different spaces. For me, what I did is I have a psychology degree, and now I have 2 psychology degrees, but at that point I had 1 psychology degree, and I thought, what do people do with a psychology degree besides become a psychologist? And I talked to many, many professionals, and I ultimately was able to zero in on human resources. And the way I was able to narrow that down was that I was able to look at my strengths and my values and see which of those showed up in those career paths, such as I'm really achievement oriented. I like to rise in the ranks. And if I was to become a psychiatrist, that's a lot of work where you are a little bit more, kind of, you have your own practice and that kind of stuff. There isn't as much teamwork. There isn't as much collaboration, which are my values. So that I knew was pushed off to the side. So anyway, stuff like that, where you just can't. I think if people do it the other way, where they just start applying to jobs, you start getting shiny object syndrome, where you're like, well, that could be good for me. And you throw your values and strengths out the window.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting question. I'm going to kind of like a little rephrase it, because so Nathan is saying, I have 20 followers and got my first tip yesterday. You guys make streaming so much easier. Thank you. Great to hear that. But to kind of elaborate on that a little bit, what if I don't have a huge community, a huge following, and I still want to leverage that live streaming and live video and that content creation thing to become that thought leader? How to not get discouraged that like, oh, but no one is watching, no one is following me, I don't have anybody to create this content to.
Yeah, I think that one of the things is some of the bad advice I got early on, which, okay, people just said, just be consistent. And I actually... just be consistent and just have quality content, which I think those are 2 huge pieces, but the word just needs to be removed, because you need to understand a lot of these platforms that you are addressing and understand your audience. I think really taking the time, like I invested a lot of courses, a lot of education on these different platforms. You don't just, there's a lot of really studying the platforms and the art of creating lives, and how building an audience works, I think is really valuable. And I think a lot of people skip that strategy and then just go with being consistent and then end up fizzing out. So I would say invest in yourself and invest in learning these things, because these are transferable skills that will really help you in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take one more. It's an interesting question. Any suggestions regarding esports? So I guess both of us are not necessarily experts in that specific field, but I'm curious if you have an opinion on career in esports that is very popular these days among young people to consider either becoming a professional gamer, professional esports athlete, or a caster, commentator, that kind of supporting roles in the area. And how do you deal with requests like, hey, help me understand and navigate the world or the industry that might not necessarily be, something conventional, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I respond to every time when someone says, hey, tell me about this industry, tell me that industry, I could tell you about it. You know who could tell you even better? Find the person who's where you want to be. Find that person. Maybe they're not all the way there yet. Maybe they're just 3 steps ahead of you. But you need to be brave enough to reach out to these people in that space, ask for their time, ask for an informational interview, ask to hear their story. And that will help you tenfold. I can help you with your resume. I can help you get the job. I can help you in the interview. I can help you craft once you really know that path and you know what skills you need to build. But it's on you to reach out to these people in that space. That is exactly how I got to where I am today. I literally just duplicated my mentor's path of exactly how she rose in the ranks of HR. Do not pave your own path. Other people have done this before.
Yeah, absolutely. How to ask for that without showing up kind of like too pushy and too needy, like, hey, you help me. I want to know how to find that like nice and balanced way to approach somebody who already accomplished something without appearing too pushy salesy.
Yeah, so I would say that you find something that you find why you're interested in them. So you might say, "Hey, I saw you went from being an accountant to working in esports, and that is a really cool leap. That is something I would like to do. Do you have 15 minutes where I could just hear your story, and I would just love to hear how you got to where you are." Something like that is very flattering to a lot of people. A lot of people want to be a mentor. A lot of people want to help others, but you need to see that person. You need to make it about them because I need, like, people message me all the time. I need this. Do this, please. Review my LinkedIn profile for free. And it's just like, what, it really does. It doesn't get you far unless you really focus on that person and really feeding them with how you see them and just asking to hear their story.
Yeah, and I think it's also for me because I do get those sometimes as well. I'm not, of course, not as many because I'm not a career coach or professional, but sometimes people who are kind of interested in the area that I'm working in, specifically influencer marketing, kind of a hot topic these days. A lot of people are interested in kind of breaking into that market. And I think what is really cool if when people asking for your help or for your advice also offer something in return. For example, they can say, hey, so I'm watching your live streams. I know a lot about Restream. I would love to create maybe some content, like maybe write a blog post about Restream to help you spread the word about it. Could you in exchange tell me how to become influencer marketing manager or how to like find that career as an influencer? And that it is just so much easier for me to immediately say, oh, of course, sure. Like you already did these things. You're offering to help me with these things. Of course, I'll help you in return. And I'm a big sucker for those kind of things. When someone is like, hey, I did this for you. Would you come back to me and like help me with something? I'm always like, yeah, absolutely. So that's another trick and hack or strategy. For those who are just joining us, let me introduce you real quick. My guest today is Madeline Mann. She is career coach, talent development manager, and the creator of Self-Made Millennial. Madeline has a YouTube channel that's called Self-Made Millennial, where you can learn a lot of things about how to advance your career. They're great tips. They're very hands-on and very actionable. Madeline is also known on LinkedIn by a hashtag tangerine tips. You can find a lot of posts and a lot of very short actionable items that you can just find on LinkedIn and follow. Speaking about tangerine tips, what's the deal with tangerines? Like you have them on your LinkedIn profile, and you have that hashtag. What's your relationship to tangerines?
Yes, so I decided early on that orange was my brand color. It's my favorite color. It really it's bold. It just feels like me. And so I made an early decision that was going to be everything. If you all follow me on LinkedIn or YouTube or TikTok, you'll see that my photo is like me against a bright orange background. So that is very obvious. So the tangerines, on LinkedIn, I'm very active on LinkedIn, as you mentioned. And what happens on LinkedIn is I was often tagged in paragraphs of names. And I thought, well, you can't find Madeline in there, so I'm going to try something creative. I'd never seen anyone put an emoji in their name on LinkedIn at this point. I'm sure maybe people had done it before, but I had never seen it in my life. And so I was like, I'm just going to like do this, and people are going to hate it, but I'm just going to try it. And so I chose the tangerine emoji because as I was flipping through the emojis, I wanted to choose the emoji that conveyed the least emotion. So I wanted it to be the least, like that they would associate it with anything or another. Like there's an orange heart, which I thought might be too feminine, or, there's other things. And I was just like, no, orange, or just an orange. It's just associated with being refreshing. And so I just started using that, and it kind of took off where I started having this affinity for it. Now it's like part of my logo and all that stuff. So yeah, that's the origin story.
That is so cool and so inspiring. Yeah, I love how you were just bold and brave to be like, you know what, I'm just going to do something that no one else does. And if people hate it, well, too bad, because it's good to have this kind of polarizing reaction to things like that. Not necessarily something controversial, but like either people hate it or love it. No one is neutral about it. I think it's brave and kind of cool. Like I love that. every time I see your LinkedIn profile or see you in any kind of notifications, I'm like, oh, the tangerine thing. That's awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit here and talk a little bit about live streaming and live video from HR professional perspective. So if you are an HR or a talent management person, why should you care about live streaming? Why should you hop on that train?
I think that the human resources profession, it's so interesting because I think what human resources professionals talk to about each other is there's a lot of great camaraderie there, and people who are passionate about human resources really truly are, and there's so much nuance to the profession. I think the other side is that human resources is something that people like to, what I call, overhear. Where in a lot of platforms, you want to create content where other people who might not be your exact target audience overhear that content and then share it with more people who are your target audience. So with human resources, our work touches everyone in an organization and it really impacts everyone. And so if you as an HR leader, even if you are speaking to other HR leaders, people will want to hear that message, even if they're not in that exact space a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's great. So one thing I've always wondered about is that for an average HR person, being great on camera, being great at live streaming, being amazing content creator that has the skills that are required to be comfortable with streaming is not something that people would typically think about, right? There are other skills that talent management people have to have, and that's not one of them. So how would you describe some steps how to overcome this struggle, and should they overcome it? Or if you think you're not good on camera, you should just completely ditch this whole live streaming thing?
Yeah, I think that for me, what helped was preparation. So I am someone who is not all that in favor of winging it. I would say in the past year or so, I have become a lot more comfortable with winging it. But what I really focused on was really understanding, okay, here's what I'm going to say in my intro. And here are all the points I'm going to say, and really making sure that you come very prepared, because I think it's a misconception that people are just born being able to wing it. Some people totally can, but I think giving yourself those notes to fall back on and really practicing, I think it can make a huge difference.
Awesome. Yeah, one thing I'm seeing, also coming back to the coronavirus topic, is that a lot of HR professionals these days, when forced to be virtual and online, kind of start to realize that, hey, this is a great avenue for me to share some insights, some behind the scenes, some values and things about our company, so people could resonate with. Do you think that even after coronavirus goes away, hopefully very soon, do you think that tendency of HR professionals to use live video and use live streaming in order to give a sneak peek into their world, into the world of their teams and companies, will stay with them?
I think that a lot of people who I've spoken to of all different generations, I think especially older generations, just avoided a lot of online webinars and doing like live events and stuff because they had cultivated such a skill for live, like in-person things. And so now they are just out of necessity have been exploring online mediums. And I think they're realizing that you can have people from all different parts of the world, and you can have recordings, and you can really convey some great material digitally. And so I think that the Pandora's box is opened. I think people now knowing that they can do it, they have the capability, there can be good results. I think that we'll see a lot more of it.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. For an HR professional, do you also have to build a brand for yourself as a career coach or HR specialist in order to be successful at your job?
I think that what will really help you be successful in your job in HR is also personal branding within a company. I think really focusing on how people see you in there, being that person that people go to. And a lot of the work of a HR professional is pretty thankless and behind the scenes. And so really taking the time to build that personal brand so that people understand not only your value, but the value that you want to provide them and serve them. In HR, you are really serving other people a lot and really making sure that their experience is as great as possible. So I think a lot of these things you can also think about within your own company of how am I building that brand as well internally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very supportive role. But yet when you have this online presence and that personal brand, it helps to build that trust, right? I would definitely be more comfortable interviewing and communicating with HR professional that I can watch live and kind of like get my impression and my kind of expectations of what kind of person that is, than someone who is just, a name on, or like a phone number or an email address, right? That's just completely not a personable thing. So definitely great advice. You're very active on LinkedIn. What is your prediction about LinkedIn Live, and how is this going to evolve in the future and help career seekers as well as HR professionals?
I think that LinkedIn Live, I would love to see how it evolves. I think that there's a lot of good traction with it. I think people are showing up, and I think that there's just that element of lives that I've seen work really well on other platforms that I think LinkedIn is ready to roll out on a wider basis. As we both know, not everyone can go live on LinkedIn right now, and the people who I'm seeing do it are doing a great job. And so I look forward to see how it rolls out, and I've definitely been a fan of it. I think the only other thing is just the problem with LinkedIn, or not the problem, but one of the components of LinkedIn is that it's what I call stumble upon content, where people don't necessarily, search for something or subscribe to something on LinkedIn. It just all kind of streams down. So I think the behavior patterns on LinkedIn will need to change, either features wise of really enabling people to be able to show up properly, or also just like, if you're a busy professional looking on LinkedIn between meetings, you're not going to show up to a live for very long. So really figuring out that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Discoverability is definitely one of the challenges right now. But also another thing I think that's interesting, I hear that feedback a lot, like, oh, it's so hard to be discovered on LinkedIn. It's so hard to convince people to stick around the whole live stream because professionals don't have an hour to waste, or to just kind of spare during their working days and hours. But I think it's important to understand, as a person who does live streaming on LinkedIn on a regular basis, it's okay if people experience just part of your content. It's okay if they tune in for 15 minutes, get their question asked and answered, interact with you. If you're doing some kind of a demo, they can watch and say, oh, okay, now I see how to use that tool or how to apply that skill, and then continue with their own day and their own thing. But it's still very valuable for them, even though they don't necessarily consume it the way they would consume a YouTube edited video from start to finish, making notes, making comments. So it's slightly different animal, I think. So I guess wrapping this up, you are on camera a lot. You have tons of videos on your YouTube channel, and you have a lot of LinkedIn content. A lot of them is video as well, and live streaming. How do you, of course, it's tiring to be on camera all the time. So what do you like to do, or basically your own passions and your own hobbies or interests when your cameras are off?
Yeah, I would say that I love just kind of going for bike rides with my husband. We bike around a lot. We have like a garden out here, and so gardening, just kind of being outside, experiencing. We really like kitschy places. We like kind of like themed. We did like a theme bed and breakfast once where it was like 50s theme. So we just kind of like a little bit wacky, interesting experiences.
Any tangerines in your garden?
Yes, I do have a tangerine tree. I have orange roses as well.
That is beautiful. I love how you stick to this brand. I chose that color. This is going to be my reality. This is going to be me. This is awesome. It was so lovely to talk to you, Madeline. Thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing your great advice and your tips and answering all the questions. I'm just going to real quick one more time show Madeline's channel, so you can find her on YouTube under Self-Made Millennial. All kinds of tips about career coaching, about how to find your passion, how to improve your resume. And of course, she also has her own personal website. It's madelinemann.com. You can get in touch with her there. And of course, find her on LinkedIn, connect, get to know each other, send your invitations. I'm sure we're both pretty open to any kind of connections. If you have any feedback, any questions, any comments outside of this show. It was great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anya.
All right, I'm going to hide you now and just do my quick little outro. For everybody who was watching us today, thanks a lot for showing up. It's great to have you, and I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate all the comments in the chat. Next Friday, we're going to have another great show for you, so please remember that every Friday between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Central Time, we're running those shows, and we will be announcing our next guest next Tuesday, I believe. Please let me know in direct message or in comments if you like the show, if you want to see anybody else as a guest, if you want to suggest any topics, any kind of thing that we'd be interested in learning more about, someone I should interview to make you happy. I look forward to your feedback. That would be great. And other than that, you just have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a fabulous weekend.